My name is Nick Carter, and I used to believe that love meant showing up. Turns out I was the only one who got that memo. The diamond earrings sat in their velvet box on my kitchen counter like tiny accusers, catching the light from my phone screen as I checked the time again. 10:47 p.m. The reservation at Chez Laurent had been for 7:30. I'd sat alone at that white tablecloth table for exactly 1 hour and 12 minutes, watching couples celebrate their own anniversaries while I nursed a glass of wine that cost more than most people's grocery bills. The waiter had been kind about it. Professional. "Perhaps Madam is running late," he'd suggested with that practiced sympathy that told me I wasn't the first husband to be stood up at his establishment. I'd ordered the salmon anyway, ate it mechanically while crafting increasingly pathetic explanations in my head. Traffic, work emergency, family crisis. But when Serena finally walked through our front door at 10:52 p.m., she wasn't breathless with apologies or clutching her phone with tales of disaster. She was laughing, actually laughing into her phone as she kicked off her heels. "No, Chloe, I'm serious. He actually said that to his wife's face," she was saying, not even noticing me sitting at our kitchen island. Some men have zero emotional intelligence. The irony wasn't lost on me. She hung up and finally registered my presence. "Oh, hey babe, you're up late." I gestured to the earrings. "Do you know what today is?" I watched her face cycle through confusion, then realization, then something that made my stomach drop. Annoyance. "Seriously?" she said, rolling her eyes in that particular way that had become her signature move over the past few years. "You're mad I forgot our anniversary day?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Oh my God, I completely forgot." Just irritation that I had the audacity to be hurt. Her voice carried that dismissive tone she usually reserved for telemarketers and her mother's suggestions about grandchildren. This was the third time, 3 years in a row, she'd blown off our anniversary. The first time, I'd chalked it up to her new promotion. The second time, I'd made excuses about her stress levels. But this third time felt different. Final. "Not mad," I said calmly, closing the jewelry box with a soft click. "Just reminded." She was already heading upstairs, scrolling through her phone. "Good, because honestly, Nick, we're not teenagers. Anniversary dinners are kind of cheesy anyway." I sat there for a long time after she went to bed, staring at those earrings and thinking about the word reminded. Because that's exactly what this was. A reminder of how little I mattered in my own marriage. A reminder that while I was memorizing her coffee order and planning romantic gestures, she was out with her friends calling other husbands emotionally unintelligent. At 2:17 a.m., while Serena slept peacefully beside me, I made a decision that would change everything. I opened my laptop and pulled up our shared Google Calendar, the one we'd set up 3 years ago when we were still pretending to coordinate our lives together. If she wanted reminders, I'd give her reminders she'd never forget. I started with the obvious one. Anniversary dinner, missed, 3rd consecutive year, and set it as an all-day event with 5 email reminders. I made it bright red and added a note. Husband waited alone at Chez Laurent for 1 hour 12 minutes. Wife was out with friends discussing other men's emotional intelligence. But I didn't stop there. I created a new event for today. The day I stopped mattering to her. All-day event. Red. With detailed notes about the exact moment I realized I was alone in this marriage. Then I got systematic. Marriage counseling research for next Tuesday. Lawyer consultation for 2 weeks out. Update will and beneficiaries for the following month. Open separate bank account scheduled for next Friday. Each event got its own color code. Red for relationship milestones, orange for legal preparations, yellow for financial planning. I added timestamps, detailed notes, even location information for the lawyer's office I'd looked up online. The beautiful thing about shared calendars is that they're designed to keep families connected. So when I added Serena's mother and sister as guests to the anniversary event, it was just being thorough. When I made the calendar publicly viewable and shared the link with our marriage counselor's office for documentation purposes, I was just being prepared. I created a whole section called Marriage Milestones and backdated entries. First time felt unappreciated from 6 months ago. Realized I was alone in this marriage from 3 months ago. Started planning exit strategy from last month. By 3:30 a.m., I had created a complete timeline of our marriage's decline and my systematic preparation to leave. Every event was a breadcrumb leading to the same inevitable conclusion: divorce. I set my alarm for 6:30 a.m. I wanted to be awake when her phone started exploding. The first notification hit Serena's phone at 7 a.m. sharp, then another at 7:01. By 7:05, her iPhone was buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a jar. I was downstairs making coffee when I heard her gasp from the bedroom. Then silence. then the rapid-fire tapping of someone frantically scrolling through their phone. "Nick!" Her voice cracked like a whip from upstairs. "Nick!" I took my time adding cream to my coffee, stirred it slowly. The panic in her voice was music to my ears after months of dismissive eye rolls. She came thundering down the stairs in her pajamas, phone clutched in her hand like evidence at a crime scene. Her face was white, her hair a mess, and for the first time in years, I had her complete attention. "What is this?" She thrust the phone at me, showing our calendar app. "What the hell is this?" I glanced at the screen, feigning surprise. "Oh, that? I took your advice about reminders. You said you forgot, so I helped you remember." She was scrolling frantically through the events. "Lawyer consultation, separate bank account. Nick, what are you doing?" "Planning ahead," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "You seemed pretty clear last night that anniversaries don't matter to you, so I figured I should start planning for a future where they really don't matter." Her phone buzzed again, a text from her mother. "Serena Marie Carter, you forgot again? That poor man. Call me right now." Then another from her sister. "Saw the calendar. Is everything okay? Are you really getting divorced?" And another from her best friend Chloe. "Girl, your husband just put your entire marriage drama on blast. Check your calendar." Serena's hands were shaking as she read the messages. "You invited my family to see this? You shared our private business with everyone?" "It's not private anymore," I said calmly. "You made that choice when you decided our anniversary wasn't worth remembering for the 3rd year running. I just documented it." She was scrolling through the events again, reading the detailed notes I'd added. Her face went from white to red as she realized the scope of what I'd done. "This is insane, Nick. You can't plan a divorce because I forgot one stupid dinner." "3 stupid dinners," I corrected. "And I'm not planning a divorce because you forgot. I'm planning a divorce because you don't care that you forgot. There's a difference." Her phone rang. Her mother. Serena declined the call, but it immediately rang again. "Delete this," she said, her voice taking on that commanding tone she used at work. "Delete all of it right now." I shook my head. "Can't do that. It's documentation now. The counselor's office has a copy for our file." "What counselor? We never agreed to counseling." "Check Tuesday's appointment. I figured we should try the professional route before I file papers." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. This wasn't the Nick she knew, the pushover who absorbed her dismissals and made excuses for her behavior. This Nick had a plan. This Nick had documentation. This Nick had already scheduled a lawyer consultation. Her phone buzzed with another text, this one from her boss at the HR firm where she worked. "Serena, I hope everything is okay. I received a calendar notification about some personal matters. Please call me when you get a chance." The color drained from her face again. "You included my boss? You shared your work calendar with our family calendar, remember? For better coordination. I was just being thorough." She was quiet for a long moment, scrolling through the events again. I could see her processing the timeline, realizing how methodically I'd planned this. How every dismissive comment, every rolled eye, every forgotten anniversary had been building to this moment. "This is blackmail," she said finally. "No," I replied, finishing my coffee. "This is consequences. You wanted me to stop caring about anniversaries? Congratulations. I've stopped caring about a lot of things." Her phone rang again. Her sister this time. Serena answered on the 4th ring. "Hi, Mom told me to call you. What's going on with you and Nick? The calendar thing looks serious?" I watched Serena struggle to find words. "How do you explain that your marriage is ending because you couldn't be bothered to show up for dinner? How do you justify 3 years of casual dismissal to someone reading it all laid out in color-coded detail?" "It's complicated," she said finally. "It looks pretty simple from here," her sister replied. I could hear her voice through the phone. "You forgot your anniversary 3 times, and now he's leaving you. That's not complicated, Serena. That's just sad." After she hung up, we sat in silence for several minutes. Serena kept scrolling through the calendar, reading the notes I'd added to each event, the timestamps, the location details, the careful documentation of her pattern of dismissal. "You really scheduled a lawyer for next week?" she asked quietly. "Tuesday at 2, I confirmed, right after our counseling session. Seemed efficient. "And the bank account?" "Friday morning. I figure we'll need separate finances during the separation." She looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw something that might have been regret. But it was too late for regret. Too late for apologies. The calendar was already shared. The documentation was already sent. The appointments were already made. "You planned this whole thing just to humiliate me," she said. "No," I replied, standing up to rinse my coffee cup. "I planned this whole thing to remind you that actions have consequences. You wanted to forget our anniversary? Fine. But you don't get to forget that forgetting it mattered to someone who loved you. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. Another reminder that her casual dismissal of our marriage was now public knowledge, documented and time-stamped for the world to see. She looked at me with something between anger and fear. What do you want, Nick? What will it take to make this stop? I dried my hands on the dish towel and looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. I want you to care, I said simply, but it's too late for that now. By noon, Serena's phone hadn't stopped buzzing. The beauty of modern technology is how quickly personal disasters can spread through social networks. Her work friends, gym buddies, college roommates, everyone who had access to her calendar was suddenly an expert on our marriage. I was in my home office, supposedly working on a network security audit for a client, when I heard her on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice was strained, defensive. No, Chloe, it's not as bad as it looks. He's just being dramatic. I could hear Chloe's response through the phone, sharp and incredulous. Dramatic? Serena, he scheduled a lawyer consultation and shared it with your mother. That's not dramatic, that's strategic. He's trying to scare me. Well, it's working. My God, the notes he added to these events. Wife prioritizes friends over marriage? Third consecutive year of dismissal. This reads like divorce court evidence. I smiled despite myself. Chloe had always been the smart one in Serena's friend group. She could see exactly what I'd done and why it was effective. Can you help me figure out how to delete it? Serena asked. Honey, you can't delete something that's already been shared with half your family and documented with a counselor's office. That ship has sailed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? There was a long pause. Then Serena said something that made my blood boil. I mean, it's just anniversaries. It's not like I cheated or anything. He's acting like I committed some major betrayal. Serena, Chloe's voice was sharp. Listen to yourself. Just anniversaries? You stood him up 3 years in a row. On the same day, the day you got married. How is that not a betrayal? You're supposed to be on my side here. I am on your side. That's why I'm telling you that you screwed up. Big time. And your husband just played the most brilliant revenge move I've ever seen. After Serena hung up, I heard her dial another number. Her sister this time. Katie, it's me. Can we talk? Katie was different from Chloe. Where Chloe was sharp and strategic, Katie was gentle but direct. She was also the only person in Serena's family who had ever really liked me. I saw the calendar, Serena. Mom is furious. I know. She's been calling all morning. She should be furious. We all should be. What were you thinking? I wasn't thinking anything. I just forgot, okay? People forget things. Once? Maybe. Twice is a pattern. 3 times? Katie's voice was sad rather than angry. 3 times is a choice, Serena, and Nick documented that choice beautifully. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of truth. And the truth is, you've been taking that man for granted for years. We've all seen it. The way you dismiss him at family gatherings, the way you roll your eyes when he tries to be romantic, the way you prioritize literally everything else over your marriage. I could hear Serena crying now. It's not that simple. It is that simple. He loved you enough to plan special dinners and buy you jewelry and wait for you at restaurants. And you loved yourself enough to blow him off for drinks with friends. Now he's loving himself enough to leave you. The math isn't complicated. So what am I supposed to do? I don't know, but whatever you do, don't try to delete that calendar. That would just prove his point about you not taking responsibility for your actions. After Katie hung up, the house went quiet. I could hear Serena moving around the kitchen, probably stress-eating like she always did when things got difficult. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Pete. Dude, I just got a calendar notification about your lawyer consultation. What the hell is going on? I'd forgotten that Pete was also connected to our family calendar for barbecues and game nights. I called him back. Nick, please tell me you're not really getting divorced over a forgotten anniversary. 3 forgotten anniversaries, I corrected. And it's not about the anniversaries, Pete. It's about what they represent. Which is? That I don't matter to her. That our marriage doesn't matter to her. That she can treat me like an afterthought and expect me to just accept it. Pete was quiet for a moment. He'd been married to his wife Jennifer for 15 years. He understood the weight of small gestures and casual dismissals. The calendar thing is brilliant, by the way. Passive-aggressive as hell, but brilliant. Thank you. But are you really going to go through with it? The lawyer, the divorce, all of it? I looked out my office window at our backyard, where Serena and I had planted a garden 3 years ago. The roses were blooming, but the vegetable patch was overgrown with weeds. Another metaphor for our marriage. I don't know, I said honestly. But I know I can't keep living like this. Loving someone who doesn't love me back, caring about someone who doesn't care about caring. And the calendar is supposed to make her care? No, the calendar is supposed to show her what not caring looks like from the other side. She wanted to forget our anniversary? Fine. Now she can see what it looks like when I forget our marriage. Pete laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You're playing with fire, man. This could blow up in ways you haven't thought about. It already has blown up. I'm just controlling the explosion. After I hung up with Pete, I went downstairs to get some lunch. Serena was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, staring at our shared calendar. Her eyes were red from crying. Your friend Pete called, she said without looking up. He wanted to know if you were really serious about the divorce. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know. Are you serious about it? I made myself a sandwich and sat down across from her. That depends. On what? On whether you understand why we're here. She gestured at the laptop screen. Because you're angry about anniversaries. Wrong answer. She looked up at me then, and I could see her struggling to understand. Then tell me. Explain it to me like I'm stupid. You're not stupid, Serena. You're dismissive. There's a difference. I don't understand the difference. A stupid person would forget our anniversary by accident. A dismissive person forgets it because it doesn't matter to them. You're not stupid. She stared at the calendar for a long moment. So what happens now? Now you decide if you want to try to save this marriage or if you want to keep pretending it doesn't need saving. And if I want to save it, then you start by not asking me to delete the calendar. You start by understanding that the calendar isn't the problem. It's the solution. It's the first honest conversation we've had about our marriage in years. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. Another reminder that our private crisis was now public knowledge. She looked at me with something that might have been understanding. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? No, I said, taking a bite of my sandwich. Easy is how we got here in the first place. The intervention came on Thursday evening. I was in the garage, organizing tools I hadn't used in months, when I heard multiple cars pulling into our driveway. Through the window, I saw Serena's entire support network assembling like some kind of emotional SWAT team. Chloe's silver BMW, her sister Katie's Honda, her mother's pristine Lexus. Even her work friend Mia had shown up in her ridiculous yellow Beetle. I walked into the house through the kitchen door to find them all arranged in our living room like a tribunal. Serena sat in the center, looking like she was facing a firing squad rather than her closest friends and family. Nick, Serena's mother, Patricia, stood up when I entered. We need to talk. Patricia had never liked me. I wasn't successful enough, ambitious enough, or Catholic enough for her precious daughter. But she'd tolerated me because Serena seemed happy. Now, with our marriage imploding in public view, she saw her chance to play the protective mother. About what? I asked, genuinely curious about what spin they'd put on this situation. About this ridiculous calendar situation, Chloe jumped in. This passive-aggressive nonsense has gone too far. I looked around the room at these women who had enabled Serena's dismissive behavior for years, who had encouraged her to prioritize girls' nights over date nights, who had rolled their eyes along with her whenever I tried to plan something romantic. Which part is ridiculous? I asked. The part where I documented my wife's pattern of dismissal, or the part where I made plans to protect myself from it? The part where you humiliated her publicly? Patricia snapped. Sharing private marital problems with the world is cruel and immature. You know what's cruel? I said, my voice rising. Sitting alone in a restaurant for over an hour while your wife laughs with her friends about other men's emotional intelligence. You know what's immature? Rolling your eyes at your husband's hurt feelings instead of apologizing for causing them. It was one dinner, Mia interjected. 3 dinners, I corrected. 3 anniversaries. 3 years of being told that the day we got married doesn't matter enough to remember. People forget things, Nick, Katie said gently. She was trying to be the reasonable voice in the room. It doesn't mean they don't care. You're right, I said. People forget things, but they remember what matters to them. Serena remembers every birthday of every friend in this room. She remembers your work anniversaries, your kids' school events, your dental appointments. She has a color-coded calendar system for her gym classes and hair appointments. But she can't remember the day we got married. The room went quiet. I could see them processing this, realizing that I'd just dismantled their people forget things argument with facts. That's different, Chloe said, but her voice lacked conviction. How is it different? Because those things are... She struggled to find the words. Important to her, I finished. Exactly. Those things are important to her. Our marriage isn't. Serena finally spoke up. That's not true. Prove it, I said. How can I prove it? You've already scheduled a lawyer consultation. You've already opened a separate bank account. You've already decided this marriage is over. I haven't done any of those things yet, I said. I've scheduled them. There's a difference. Patricia stood up again. This is blackmail. You're holding the marriage hostage unless she performs to your satisfaction. No, I said, turning to face her. This is consequences. For 10 years, I've absorbed every eye roll, every dismissive comment, every casual blow-off. I've made excuses for behavior that you would never tolerate from anyone else in your life. But because it's directed at me, it's supposed to be okay? Marriage requires compromise, Patricia said. You're absolutely right. It does. I've been compromising for years. I compromised when she stopped planning date nights. I compromised when she started prioritizing her friends over our relationship. I compromised when she forgot our first anniversary and our second. But apparently, remembering the day we got married is where she draws the line on compromise. Chloe leaned forward. So what do you want, Nick? What's your end game here? I want her to care, I said simply. I want her to understand that dismissing your husband's feelings has consequences. I want her to realize that marriage isn't a participation trophy. You actually have to participate. And if she doesn't, Mia asked, then I follow through on the calendar, counseling first, to try to save it, then lawyers, to end it cleanly. Serena was crying now. You're really going to throw away 10 years of marriage over anniversaries? I'm not throwing anything away, I said. You threw it away 3 years ago when you decided our anniversary didn't matter. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Katie spoke up again. What would it take for you to cancel the lawyer consultation? I thought about it for a moment. An apology would be a start, a real one. Not, I'm sorry you're upset, or I'm sorry you feel that way. A real apology that acknowledges what she did and why it was wrong. All eyes turned to Serena. She wiped her tears and looked up at me. I'm sorry I forgot our anniversaries. That's not an apology, I said. That's an acknowledgement of facts. Then what do you want me to say? I want you to understand why it matters. I want you to understand that when you roll your eyes at my hurt feelings, you're telling me that my feelings don't matter. I want you to understand that when you prioritize drinks with friends over dinner with your husband, you're telling me that I don't matter. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I do understand that. Do you? Yes. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you feel like you don't matter. I'm sorry I dismissed your feelings. I'm sorry I took you for granted. It was a good apology, maybe even a great one, but it was 3 years too late, delivered in front of an audience that had spent the evening trying to convince me I was wrong to be hurt. Thank you, I said. That means something. Does it mean enough? She asked hopefully. I looked around the room at these women who had enabled her dismissive behavior for years, who would continue to enable it after this crisis passed, who would help her rationalize future dismissals and eye rolls and forgotten anniversaries. I don't know, I said honestly. But the calendar stands. The appointments stay scheduled. If you want to save this marriage, you're going to have to prove that apology is more than just words. Patricia stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're punishing her for one mistake. 3 mistakes, I corrected, and I'm not punishing her. I'm protecting myself from a pattern of behavior that you all seem to think is acceptable. So, what happens now? Chloe asked. Now we go to counseling on Tuesday. We see if this apology translates into actual change, and if it doesn't, we go to the lawyer on Thursday. And if it does? Serena asked quietly. Then maybe we cancel the lawyer consultation. Maybe we work on rebuilding something that's worth remembering. The room was quiet for several minutes. Finally, Patricia gathered her purse and headed for the door. This is not how marriages are supposed to work, she said. You're absolutely right, I replied. Marriages are supposed to work with mutual respect and consideration. When they don't, this is what happens. After they all left, Serena and I sat in our living room in silence. The calendar was still there on her laptop screen, color-coded and time-stamped, documenting the decline of our marriage in painful detail. Do you really think we can fix this? She asked. I think we can try, I said. But it's going to require you to actually care about fixing it, not just saying you care, actually caring. She nodded, staring at the calendar. The counseling appointment is really scheduled? Tuesday at noon, Dr. Sarah Martinez. She specializes in marriage counseling and communication issues. And the lawyer? Thursday at 2, just in case. She closed the laptop and looked at me. I really am sorry, Nick. I know you are. The question is whether you'll still be sorry next month or next year, or the next time you're choosing between our marriage and something else that seems more important in the moment. I will be. We'll see. As she headed upstairs to bed, I stayed in the living room, thinking about the evening. The apology had been good, maybe even sincere, but apologies were easy, change was hard. And the calendar was still there, counting down to our next appointment, reminding us both that good intentions weren't enough anymore. Dr. Sarah Martinez had the kind of office that was designed to make people feel safe, soft lighting, comfortable chairs, boxes of tissues strategically placed around the room. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that I immediately respected. Serena sat beside me on the couch, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl called to the principal's office. She'd been nervous all morning, changing outfits 3 times and asking me repeatedly what I was going to tell the counselor. I'm going to tell her the truth, I'd said each time. That's kind of the point. Dr. Martinez opened our session by reviewing the intake forms we'd filled out separately. She looked between us with the practiced neutrality of someone who'd seen every possible variation of marital dysfunction. So, she said, Nick, you've documented a pattern of what you call dismissive behavior from Serena. Can you explain what that means to you? I glanced at Serena, who was staring at her hands. It means that my feelings don't seem to matter to her, that when I express hurt or disappointment, her response is irritation rather than concern. Can you give me a specific example? 3 weeks ago, she forgot our anniversary for the 3rd consecutive year. When I asked if she knew what day it was, she rolled her eyes and said, Seriously? You're mad I forgot our anniversary day? Not, I'm sorry. Not, I forgot. Just annoyance that I had the audacity to be hurt. Dr. Martinez made a note. And how did that make you feel? Invisible, I said without hesitation. Like I don't matter in my own marriage. She turned to Serena. What's your perspective on that interaction? Serena shifted uncomfortably. I did forget, and I was defensive when he brought it up. But it wasn't because I don't care about him. It was because I felt guilty, and I didn't know how to handle it. So, your response to feeling guilty was to dismiss his feelings. Yes, I guess so. Help me understand why. Serena was quiet for a long moment. Because admitting I was wrong meant admitting that I'd hurt him, and it was easier to act like he was overreacting than to deal with the fact that I'd screwed up. It was the most honest thing she'd said in months. Dr. Martinez nodded. That's a very insightful observation, Serena. Nick, how does it feel to hear her say that? It feels like progress, I said, but it also feels like something she should have figured out before we ended up here. Fair enough. Now, I want to talk about the calendar. Nick, walk me through your decision-making process there. I explained the calendar system, the color coding, the detailed notes, the shared access with family members. Dr. Martinez listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions. What was your goal with the calendar? She asked when I finished. Documentation, initially. I wanted a record of the pattern, but also consequences. She wanted to forget our anniversary? Fine. Now she could see what it looked like when I forgot our marriage. And sharing it with her family? They needed to see what they'd been enabling. For years, they've watched her dismiss me and said nothing. They've encouraged her to prioritize everything else over our marriage. I wanted them to see the logical endpoint of that behavior. Serena spoke up. It was humiliating. Good, I said. It should have been humiliating. Treating your husband like an afterthought should be humiliating. Dr. Martinez held up a hand. Let's pause there. Nick, I understand your anger, but using humiliation as a tool in your marriage is problematic. It creates a power dynamic that's unhealthy for both of you. As opposed to the power dynamic where she gets to dismiss me without consequences, I'm not saying her behavior was acceptable. I'm saying that fighting dismissiveness with humiliation isn't a sustainable solution. She turned to Serena. How did the calendar make you feel? Exposed, ashamed, like everyone could see what a terrible wife I'd been. Were you a terrible wife? Dr. Martinez asked. Serena considered this. In some ways, yes. I took him for granted. I prioritized other things over our relationship. I dismissed his feelings when he tried to tell me he was hurt. And why did you do those things? Because I could. Because he always forgave me. Because I knew he wouldn't leave. The room went quiet. It was the most brutally honest thing Serena had ever said about our marriage. Dr. Martinez made another note. That's a significant admission, Serena. How does it feel to say that out loud? Terrible. But also relieving? Like I don't have to pretend anymore that I didn't know what I was doing. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but something like hope. "Nick," Dr. Martinez said, "how does it feel to hear Serena acknowledge that pattern? Like maybe we're finally having the conversation we should have had 3 years ago. Good. Now let's talk about moving forward. Serena, what changes are you willing to make?" "Whatever it takes," she said quickly. "I'll do whatever he needs me to do." Dr. Martinez shook her head. "That's not how this works. I'm not asking what you're willing to do for Nick. I'm asking what you're willing to do for yourself and for this marriage." Serena thought about it. "I want to learn how to apologize properly when I mess up, instead of getting defensive. I want to prioritize our relationship the way I prioritize other things that matter to me. And I want to understand why I've been so dismissive, so I can change it." "Those are good goals. Nick, what about you? What changes are you willing to make?" I hadn't expected that question. "I don't know. I feel like I've been doing all the changing for years." "That may be true, but moving forward requires both of you to grow. What role did you play in this dynamic?" I thought about it. I enabled it. I absorbed her dismissiveness without setting boundaries. I made it easy for her to take me for granted by always being available, always forgiving, always making excuses for her behavior. "So, what would you do differently?" "I'd speak up sooner. I'd set clearer boundaries. I'd stop making excuses for behavior that hurts me." Dr. Martinez smiled. "Those are excellent insights from both of you. Now here's what I want you to understand. This marriage can be saved, but it's going to require fundamental changes in how you interact with each other. Serena, you need to learn how to value Nick's feelings as much as you value your own. Nick, you need to learn how to advocate for yourself without resorting to nuclear options like public humiliation." "What about the lawyer consultation?" Serena asked quietly. Dr. Martinez looked at me. "That's Nick's decision, but I'd recommend postponing it for at least a month while we work on these issues." I thought about the calendar, with its color-coded timeline of our marriage's decline, about the lawyer consultation scheduled for Thursday, about the separate bank account I'd planned to open. "I'll postpone it," I said finally. "But the calendar stays public until I see real change. Not just promises of change. Actual change." Serena nodded. "I understand. And if the dismissive behavior comes back, if you roll your eyes at my feelings or blow off something that matters to me, we're done. No more chances. No more counseling. Just lawyers and division of assets." "I understand," she said again. Dr. Martinez scheduled us for weekly sessions and gave us homework, communication exercises, daily check-ins, specific strategies for handling conflict without dismissiveness or humiliation. As we walked to our cars after the session, Serena stopped me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on us without trying this first. For giving me a chance to fix what I broke." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Remorse, understanding, maybe even love. "Don't thank me yet," I said. "Thank me in 6 months if we're still married and you haven't rolled your eyes at me once." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it reached her eyes. "Deal." As I drove home, I thought about the calendar on my phone, still counting down to appointments that might not be necessary anymore. But I wasn't deleting anything yet. Change was hard, and patterns were harder to break than promises were to make. Time would tell if Serena's apology was the beginning of something new, or just another thing she'd forget when it became inconvenient to remember. 3 weeks into our counseling sessions, life felt almost normal. Serena had been making an effort, remembering to ask about my day, planning a date night, even apologizing properly when she interrupted me during a conversation. Small changes, but consistent ones. I was starting to believe that maybe the calendar had shocked her into genuine change. Maybe public humiliation had been exactly what our marriage needed. Then came the test I hadn't planned. It was a Friday evening, and we'd made plans to try that new Italian restaurant downtown. I'd made reservations for 7 o'clock, and Serena had promised to be home by 6:30 so we could drive together. It wasn't our anniversary or any special occasion, just a regular date night, the kind Dr. Martinez had recommended we schedule weekly. At 6:45, I was dressed and waiting by the door when my phone buzzed with a text from Serena. "Running late. Work crisis. Can you push the reservation to 8? I called the restaurant. They could move us to 8:15, but that was the latest they had available. I texted back, "Move to 8:15. See you soon." At 7:30, another text. "This is taking longer than expected. Can we just do takeout instead?" I stared at the message, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. The same feeling I'd had sitting alone at Chez Laurent on our anniversary. The same feeling I'd had every time she'd chosen something else over our plans. I called her. "Hey," she answered, sounding distracted. "Did you see my text?" "I saw it. What's the work crisis?" "Oh, it's this whole thing with the Henderson account. Sarah messed up the client presentation, and now I have to fix it before Monday." "Can't it wait until tomorrow?" "Well, technically, but if I get it done tonight, I can have the whole weekend free." There it was, the choice. Our date night versus her convenience. Our relationship versus her preference to have a clear weekend. "Serena," I said carefully, "do you remember what Dr. Martinez said about prioritizing our relationship?" "Of course I remember, but this is different. This is work." "So was the work event you chose over our anniversary." There was a pause. "That's not fair, Nick. This is a legitimate crisis." "Is it? Or is it just easier to deal with work tonight than to keep our date?" "I can't believe you're making this into a big deal. It's one dinner. We can go tomorrow night." And there it was, the dismissive tone, the eye roll I could hear through the phone, the casual blow-off that told me I was overreacting to something that shouldn't matter. "No," I said quietly, "we can't go tomorrow night, because tomorrow night you'll find another reason why something else is more important." "Nick, you're being ridiculous." "Am I? 3 weeks ago, you promised Dr. Martinez that you would prioritize our relationship. Tonight was our first real test of that promise, and you failed." "It's one dinner." "It's never just one dinner, Serena. It's always one dinner, or one anniversary, or one date night, or one conversation. It's always one thing that's somehow less important than everything else in your life." I could hear her getting frustrated. "Fine. I'll leave work right now. I'll come home and we'll go to dinner and I'll pretend to have fun while I'm stressed about this presentation." "No," I said. "Don't do me any favors. Stay at work. Fix your presentation. Enjoy your clear weekend." What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done pretending that your promises mean anything. It means I'm done making excuses for behavior that you promised to change but clearly haven't. I hung up and sat in my car for several minutes, staring at our house. The house where I'd waited for her on our anniversary. The house where I'd created the calendar that documented our marriage's decline. The house where I'd started to believe that maybe things could be different. My phone rang. Serena calling back. I declined the call. It rang again. I declined it again. Then came the texts. "Nick, please answer your phone. I'm leaving work now. We can still make the 8:15 reservation. Please don't do this. It was one mistake. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Please come home so we can talk." I drove to Pete's house instead. "You look like hell," he said when he opened the door. "What happened?" I told him about the date night, the work crisis, the broken promise. Pete listened without judgment, occasionally shaking his head. "So what are you going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I'm going to follow through on the calendar. Lawyer consultation, separate bank account, divorce papers." "Because of one missed date night?" "Because she hasn't actually changed. She just got better at hiding the dismissiveness for a few weeks. But when it mattered, when she had to choose between our relationship and her convenience, she made the same choice she's always made." Pete was quiet for a moment. "You know, Jennifer and I went through something similar about 5 years ago. She was working crazy hours, missing dinners, canceling plans. I felt invisible." "What did you do?" "I told her that I felt like I was married to her job instead of her. And you know what she said?" "What?" "She said I was right, and she changed jobs." I stared at him. "She changed jobs?" "She said our marriage was more important than her career advancement, so she found a position with better work-life balance, took a small pay cut, and we rebuilt our relationship." "Serena would never do that." "Have you asked her to?" I thought about it. Had I ever asked Serena to make a real sacrifice for our marriage? Had I ever given her a choice between her career and our relationship? "No," I admitted. "I've asked her to remember anniversaries and keep date nights, but I've never asked her to actually change her priorities." "Maybe that's the real test," Pete said. "Not whether she can remember to show up for dinner. Whether she's willing to restructure her life to make room for your marriage." I drove home around 10 o'clock. Serena's car was in the driveway, and I could see her silhouette in the living room window. She was waiting for me. When I walked in, she stood up immediately. Her eyes were red from crying. "I'm sorry," she said, before I could speak. "You're right. I made the same choice I always make. I prioritized work over us." "Yes, you did." "And I know saying sorry isn't enough anymore. I know I've used up all my chances." I sat down across from her. "Have you?" "Haven't I?" "I don't know, Serena. That depends on whether you're willing to make real changes or just cosmetic ones. What do you mean? I mean that missing date nights is a symptom. The disease is that your job is more important to you than our marriage. And until that changes, we're going to keep having the same fight over and over again. She was quiet for a long moment. What are you asking me to do? I'm asking you to choose. Really choose. Not just promise to try harder or remember better. Actually choose between the career that keeps you away from home 60 hours a week and the marriage that you say you want to save. You want me to quit my job? I want you to want to quit your job. I want you to look at your life and decide that our relationship is worth more than your next promotion or your next client or your next weekend work crisis. She stared at me like I'd asked her to cut off her arm. My career is important to me, Nick. I know it is. More important than our marriage, apparently. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you turned down extra work to spend time with me? When's the last time you left the office early because you missed me? When's the last time you chose me over your job? She couldn't answer because we both knew the answer was never. I can't just quit, she said finally. We need my income. We have a mortgage. We could downsize, sell this house, buy something smaller, live on my salary and whatever you could make in a less demanding job. You've thought about this. I've thought about a lot of things over the past few weeks, including what it would take for me to actually believe that you want to save this marriage, she was crying again. This isn't fair. You're asking me to give up everything I've worked for. I'm asking you to give up the things that are preventing you from being a wife, just like you've been asking me to give up my expectation of being treated like a husband. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Serena spoke. If I did this, if I changed jobs, downsized the house, restructured my whole life, would that be enough? Would you cancel the lawyer consultation? If you did it willingly, without resentment, because you genuinely wanted to prioritize our marriage? Yes. And if I can't? If I'm not willing to give up my career? Then we get divorced. Cleanly, fairly, without drama. And we both find people who share our priorities. She nodded slowly. How long do I have to decide? The lawyer consultation is scheduled for next Thursday. If you want to cancel it, you need to give me a decision by Wednesday. And what would the decision look like? Specifically? Your resignation letter, submitted and accepted, a real estate agent hired to list the house, a genuine commitment to rebuilding our marriage instead of just managing it. She stared at me for a long moment. You're really going to make me choose? No, I said, standing up to go to bed. I'm really going to let you choose. For the first time in our marriage, you get to decide what matters more to you, your career or your husband. That's not a fair choice. It's the only choice that matters. As I headed upstairs, I heard her whisper, What if I choose wrong? Then at least we'll both know where we stand, I said, without turning around. The calendar on my phone still showed the lawyer consultation for Thursday at 2 p.m. In 5 days, I'd either be canceling that appointment or keeping it. Either way, I'd finally have my answer about what mattered most to my wife. Wednesday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching the mood that had settled over our house like fog. Serena had been quiet for days, going through the motions of normal life while wrestling with the choice I'd given her. I'd watched her start conversations she couldn't finish, pick up her phone to call someone, then put it down again, stare at her laptop screen without typing. She was supposed to give me her decision today. The lawyer consultation was scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. I was in the kitchen making coffee when she came downstairs, dressed for work, but moving like someone walking to their own execution. She had a manila envelope in her hand. I made my decision, she said quietly. I turned to face her, coffee mug halfway to my lips. And? She held out the envelope. My resignation letter. I submitted it to HR yesterday. My last day is next Friday. I set down my coffee and took the envelope. Inside was a copy of her resignation letter, formal and professional, citing personal priorities. As the reason for leaving, at the bottom was an email confirmation from HR accepting her resignation. You're really doing this, I said. I'm really doing this. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking. I also called a real estate agent. She's coming by this afternoon to do a market analysis. I stared at the letter, trying to process what this meant. For 10 years, Serena's career had been her identity. She'd worked 60-hour weeks, missed family gatherings, canceled vacations, all in service of climbing the corporate ladder, and now she was walking away from it. Why? I asked. Because I realized something this week. I've been so focused on building a life that I forgot to live one. I've been so busy becoming successful that I forgot to be happy, and I've been so determined to have everything that I was about to lose the only thing that actually matters. Which is? Us. This marriage. The life we could have together if I stopped sabotaging it. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Peace, like she'd been carrying a weight she'd finally set down. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. "Because if you do this and then resent me for it, we'll just end up divorced anyway." "I won't resent you. I might resent myself for taking so long to figure it out, but I won't resent you." "What about money? The mortgage? Our lifestyle?" She smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. "I've been thinking about that too. Do you know how much we spend on things that are supposed to make us happy but don't? The house that's too big for two people, the cars that sit in the garage while we work, the vacations we never take because we're too busy earning money to pay for them. So what are you proposing? A smaller house, maybe that neighborhood by the lake where we used to walk on weekends. A simpler life, more time together, less stress, less money, but more everything else." I thought about the calendar on my phone, with its color-coded timeline of our marriage's decline, about the lawyer consultation scheduled for tomorrow, about the separate bank account I'd never opened and the divorce papers I'd never filed. "What about your career?" I asked. "All those years of building your reputation, your network, your expertise?" "I can freelance, consulting work, set my own schedule, choose my own clients, make enough to contribute, but not so much that I disappear into my work again." She paused, then added, "I spent this whole week thinking about what I'd miss most if we got divorced. And it wasn't my job or my title or my corner office. It was you. The idea of coming home to you, the possibility of growing old with you, the chance to figure out who we could be together if I stopped being so busy being successful." I felt something shift in my chest. Not just hope this time, but something deeper. Something like forgiveness. "The lawyer consultation is tomorrow at 2, I said. "I know. Are you going to cancel it?" I looked at the resignation letter again, at the email confirmation, at this woman who had just restructured her entire life because she'd finally understood what mattered. "Yeah," I said. "I'm going to cancel it." She started crying then, but they were different tears than the ones she'd cried over the past few weeks. Relief instead of fear. Joy instead of panic. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," I said, echoing what I'd told her after our first counseling session. "Thank me in a year if we're both happy with the choices we made." "I will be," she said with a certainty that surprised me. "I already am." I pulled out my phone and opened our shared calendar. The lawyer consultation was still there, color-coded orange, with detailed notes about division of assets and custody arrangements we didn't need. I deleted it. Then I created a new event for tomorrow at 2 p.m. House hunting with my wife. Serena saw me typing and smiled. "What are you doing?" "Updating our calendar," I said. "Seems like we're going to need some new appointments." She laughed, and the sound filled our kitchen like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Can I make a suggestion for the calendar?" "What?" "Anniversary dinner, next month. Recurring annually. 5 email reminders." "You sure you want 5 reminders? Seems like overkill." "Trust me," she said, kissing my cheek. "I never want to forget another important date again." I added the anniversary dinner to our calendar, color-coded red for relationship milestones. But this time, the red meant celebration instead of decline. As Serena headed upstairs to shower before work, her last few days of work, I thought about the past month. About the calendar that had documented our marriage's near death and resurrection. About the choice that had saved us both. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. House hunting with my wife, tomorrow at 2 p.m. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to tomorrow. Epilogue. 6 months later. The house by the lake was smaller than our old one, but it had something our old house never had. Us in it, together, actually living instead of just existing in parallel lives. Serena's freelance consulting business was thriving in ways her corporate job never had. She worked from the sunroom overlooking the water, setting her own hours, choosing clients who respected her boundaries. She made about 60% of what she'd made before, but she was home for dinner every night and had never once missed a date we'd planned. I'd started working remotely 3 days a week, which meant we had lunch together more often than not. Simple things, but they mattered. Conversation over sandwiches, walks by the water, the luxury of time that we'd never had when we were busy building a life instead of living one. Our shared calendar still existed, but it looked different now. Color-coded green for date nights, blue for weekend adventures, red for anniversaries and special occasions, yellow for the mundane but important, doctor's appointments, family dinners, the ordinary maintenance of a life built together. Dr. Martinez had pronounced us graduated from counseling after 4 months, though we still went monthly for what she called relationship maintenance. like oil changes for marriage. The anniversary dinner reservation was for tonight. Same restaurant where she'd stood me up a year ago, but this time she'd been the one to suggest it. Full circle, she'd said when she made the reservation. But better this time. She was upstairs getting ready, humming something I didn't recognize. Happy sounds from a happy person. It had taken me a while to believe that the happiness was real, not just an overcorrection from guilt, but 6 months of consistent behavior had convinced me. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Anniversary dinner, tonight at 7:30 p.m. 1 year since we almost lost everything. Grateful we didn't. She'd added the note this morning, along with a heart emoji that would have made me roll my eyes a year ago, but now just made me smile. "Ready?" she called from upstairs. "Ready," I called back. As we drove to the restaurant, I thought about the calendar that had saved our marriage by nearly ending it, about the choice that had changed everything, about the woman beside me who had given up everything she thought she wanted to keep the one thing that actually mattered. What are you thinking about?" she asked, noticing my quiet mood. "The calendar," I said. "How it all started with a forgotten anniversary and ended with you remembering everything that matters." She reached over and took my hand. "I never thanked you properly for that, you know." "For what?" "For caring enough to fight for us. For making the consequences clear enough that I couldn't ignore them anymore. For giving me the chance to choose what mattered most." "You chose well," I said. We both did. At the restaurant, the same waiter who had served my lonely anniversary dinner a year ago seated us at a table by the window. He recognized me, I could tell, but he was too professional to mention it. Serena ordered wine, the same bottle I'd shared with myself that night, but this time we shared it together, toasting not just our anniversary, but our survival. "To the calendar that saved our marriage," she said, raising her glass. "To the woman who was brave enough to change her life," I replied. As we clinked glasses, I saw her check her phone briefly. Not for work emails or urgent messages, but to look at our shared calendar, where tomorrow showed "sleep in with my husband" blocked out until noon. Some habits were worth keeping. The diamond earrings I'd bought a year ago were finally in her ears, catching the candlelight as she smiled at me across the table. Better late than never. "Happy anniversary, Nick," she said. "Happy anniversary, Serena." This time, we were both there to celebrate it.